Okay, so for the last section of chapter 10, we're going to look at how do we graph a circle like on the coordinate plane? Like how do we write the equation of a circle with x's and y's? So the equation of a circle is not a function. It doesn't pass the vertical line test. But we still have a way to create the section, the infinite number of points that make up any circle. So we're just going to dive right into the general form of the equation, then play around with it. So to write the equation of a circle, you need the radius, and you need the coordinates of the center, like an xy coordinate. And here's your standard form of the equation. So if r is your radius, and the ordered pair hk is the coordinate of the center, to write the equation of a circle, you do x minus h squared, that's the x part of the center, plus y minus k squared, k being the y part of the center, is equal to r squared. So you're going to see that this does resemble like the Pythagorean theorem, but it really doesn't have much to do with the Pythagorean theorem because this is your horizontal part, this is your vertical part, and then this is how far away you're getting from a certain point. So to use this general form, if we were given a center of 4, -3, and a radius of 7, our equation would be x minus 4 squared plus, and now when you have y minus -3, that just becomes y plus 3 squared equals 7 squared, which is 49. And if you were to go over to like Desmos.com or another graphing utility and type that in, you would get a circle, which is kind of cool. And you would get that exact same circle, a radius of 7 and a center at 4, -3. So the rest of this video is basically just working through this and doing different problems with this. So here we're told the equation of a circle is x plus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 9. We're asked to graph the circle. So to graph it, we're going to want to figure out what the radius is and what the center is. Now the radius is pretty easy because we know that r squared is equal to 9. So if r squared equals 9, that means r has to equal 3 because 3 squared is equal to 9. The center we have to be a little careful because we remember the general form is minus for the h and the k. So when we have x plus 2, that means the x part of the center is actually -2. And the y minus 3 means the y part is 3. So it's just kind of backwards if you want to think of it that way. X plus 2 becomes a -2 for the x part. -3 becomes a +3 for the y part. So we'd go left 2, up 3. And then how I like to do this, and it's going to be bad because I'm doing it on my computer, but I like to just get 4 more points. So if this is my center, the radius is 3, so I can go 3 to the right, 3 to the left, I can go 3 up, and 3 down. And yeah, that makes a square, but from here you can kind of just round it out and sketch out your circle. And that gives you a pretty general idea of what it looks like, where your center is correct, -2, 3, and then your radius is 3 units. And it's not going to be perfect if you're doing it by hand, but that's just a fine way to do it. Okay, how about this one? Let's work a little harder for it. The point 1, 2 is on a circle, so that's not the center, but the center is at 5, 0. We're asked to write the standard equation of that circle. So what we're missing here is r. But if we were to graph these points, our center is at 5, 0, that's here. The point 1, 2 is on the circle. So what this means is this circle probably looks something like this, where it's kind of going off the page. So what we need to find is this length right here. It should be a straight line, but you get my point. That's the radius. So how do we find that length? Well, we can use the distance formula, but we know the distance formula is the same thing as the Pythagorean theorem. So this is 2 units. This is 4 units. So you'd have something like r squared is equal to 2 squared plus 4 squared. And that's just the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equaling c squared. So r squared is equal to 4 plus 16. So r squared is equal to 20. And upon first glance, if we did want to find r, we would take the square root. But if we're just writing the equation, all we want is r squared. So we know the center, we know r squared, so now we can just write our equation. So x minus h, so it's like x minus 5 squared, plus y minus 0 is just y, so I'm just going to do y squared. And if you did parentheses y minus 0, that's okay too. And we know that is equal to r squared, which we just wrote is 20. So that's a perfectly good equation of that circle. Okay, so one more page. We're asked to write the standard form of the equation of the circle shown. The diameter is given to us. We need two things to find the center of a circle. Ask yourself what those two things are right now. What two things do you need to write the equation of a circle? We need the center, and we need to figure out what the radius is. We're going to do that just by focusing on the diameter here. So let's count what the length of this diameter is. How many units is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The diameter is 10, so that means the radius has to be 5. So if the radius is 5, how do we find the center? Well, the center is going to be on the diameter, and it's just going to be 5 units down from the top or up from the bottom. So I'll go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the middle of the circle. And it looks like the middle of the circle because it's 5 units up, 5 units down. That point looks like it's at 2, 2. We have the center, we have the radius, run the program. X minus 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared is equal to 5 squared, which is 25. And there's our equation of that circle. I encourage you, if we were in class, I would take us on Desmos.com and just kind of play around with these equations of circles. So I'd encourage you to do that if you'd want. You could type this in and you would see a circle just like that. So feel free to do that if you want. But otherwise, that wraps us up for chapter 10, actually, and that's the end of 10.7.